We're here. Thank you. All right. Brenda, just burning in the wire. I love your hair when it's nice and flat like that.
Sir.
Not big and poofy like mine. Okay, we are at November 29th, 2023, and it is 6:01 p.m. I'm going to call the meeting to order. This is the special council meeting of Diamond Valley to strictly go over budget, which we asked for last month. So I'm very happy that we could all be here tonight to go over this very fine budget. The town of Diamond Valley acknowledges the traditional territories of the Treaty 7 region, Southern Alberta, which includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, the members of Siksika, Kainai, and Kainai First Nations, the Stoney Nakoda, Bearspaw, Chiniki, Wesley, and the Dene of Tsuut'ina First Nations, and people that call Métis Region 3 home. With that, we have an adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions from administration?
None this evening, Mayor.
None. And council, do you have any additions? None. Excellent. I'll take that motion. Deputy Mayor Kelly gives us the motion to adopt the agenda as presented. All in favor? Thank you. That is carried. All right. 3A 2024 operating draft budget. Number 2. I believe Todd, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you are going to run through the slides, get the high points, and then council, if we could either save the questions. We've got a lot of them in our Q&As that we had an email form, but Todd, I'll hand it over to you and you can run from here.
Sure. Thanks, Mayor Crane. Good evening, council. It's our pleasure to present the second draft, version 2 of the 2024-2025 operating budget. In your package, as you've seen, there are 6 or 8, if I recall, key areas that we revised in this package. I won't go into great detail on that, but I will walk you through a bit of a process today. So what I'd like to do is just highlight those 8 areas that we made significant changes to. We want to talk to you a little bit about the personnel changes that are involved in this budget. We have a number of updated documents such as debentures, reserves, grant totals, things like that. And then what we've done in the version 2 of the budget is we have highlighted any area where there was a material change and made a note in the footnotes of each page that explain the change, the significance of the change that was there for council's benefit. And then at the end of that, I know we had a Q&A coming from council. I will not go through that line by line. However, if there was questions of clarification on that, we're happy to answer. And at that point, we will wrap up for broader questions from what you heard. And hopefully we can answer. We have the management team on standby here if there's questions of immense detail that I can't answer, but I'll do my best to do those at first blush for you. So on that note, my council package is not numbered. I don't know if yours is or not. So we'll take time to make sure we're looking at the same pages as we go through, because we will jump around just a little bit. So as you know, council, you saw a first version of the budget in committee of the whole on October the 19th. This second draft is a revision of that. As you know, anytime we prepare a budget, it's a snapshot in time, and as new information becomes available, we incorporate that into the most recent version before you. So there are a number of areas that revisions were made to on the revenue and the expenditure side, as you can see in your request for decision. The first one was that there was a slight reduction in the tax revenue in version 2, simply because we had discovered that there were some revenues grouped into general taxation that we had to pull out. So that's just an accounting function. There is a reserve draw that for amalgamation expenses that we'll point out to you that was removed because we don't anticipate any significant new unanticipated expenses due to amalgamation. The utility revenue in this budget reflects the conversations that were had on Monday night. So in 2024, the revenues and expenses, for that matter, reflect that level set that was discussed between Turner Valley and Black Diamond sides of the river. If council makes a different decision around utility rates, we simply can do a budget amendment at any time. It doesn't affect the progress or process of approving this budget. There were some operating grants that are not in consideration. We removed them from fiscal year 2024. We're no longer eligible. Some may have been due to amalgamation that were one-time grants that we won't get. And then there were some other under revenues. We had underestimated the recoveries for the fire department in support of the county, for example, and the recoveries we get for that. So that number on the revenue side has increased. I'll point that out to you in the package. Under the expenses, wages and benefits, there's more clarity on the proposed employee additions. We'll talk about that and give council some perspective and clarity. It also accounts for a 2% inflationary increase, which was part of the budget guidelines this summer that council asked us to proceed with under certain assumptions. And then there were CPP and EI increases. Of note, the benefits do not increase in 2024. Our premiums have stayed the same. Okay. Under vehicle maintenance, we had a number of vehicles that are well past beyond life cycle. And when we looked at purchase versus leasing, we had difficulty finding, because of the amounts that we're using, we've opted to go for a lease program as opposed to a purchase program. And so the line items that you'll see in the capital budget that you saw at the committee of the whole have been removed, and those lease expenses have been moved into the operating budget. And finally, there were transfers to reserves in the version 1 based on an assumption of where utility rates were going to go to a full cost recovery. And since we're not, it's unlikely that we're doing that in 2024, we've removed transfers to reserves from those line items. So that's a very high level summary of the changes. As far as the position requests go in 2024, if you wouldn't mind putting that slide up there, that would be great. I wanted to walk through those. There's some changes between what you saw on October the 19th and today. There's a reduced ask. And we're gonna put a slide up to explain that for you. Hold on. Sorry. So in a nutshell, council, I'll give you the punchline and I'll work backwards. Administration is looking for 4.6, the equivalent 4.6 full-time equivalents in this year's budget. It's broken down as follows, and then I'll turn your attention to this slide. So if you can hear the narrative first, and then I'll give you the breakdown. There's one position in finance. There was a pre-existing pre-existing position that we're coming back to council asking to fill. I'll give you the history on that in a second. There's one position in parks, which also was pre-existing position. We're looking for a 0.5 FTE for the 0.5 FTE to round up the Director of Emergency Management role. The reason it's 0.5 is because we had 0.5 in the budget in previous years, 0.25 on each side of the river. There's some part-time wages, so that's a reduction from the original 2.0 FTE ask. We're asking for 0.5 FTE now, which is basically swing shifts and other coverage. And also a special events admin position for 0.6, which was a pre-existing position prior to amalgamation that we're looking to top back up. Finally, there's a full-time intern through the municipal internship program, which the vast majority of those wages are covered by grants from the province. I would say about 80 to 85% covered by grants. So all told, we're looking for 4.6. Really, it's 3.6 out of the town coffers. And if you can look at this slide, I know you already have, we just wanted to show you a breakdown that these are not brand new positions. Some of them were already pre-existing. So we had if you look at the middle column, council, amalgamation redundancies, as you know, there were some management positions that were deemed redundant, of course, due to amalgamation. We had one less CAO. There was a finance manager and we'll call it operations manager, public works manager, Mr. Beaton's equivalent, and a ledge services manager that were redundant due to amalgamation. So as of January 1st, we reduced by 4. In the run up to amalgamation and in the crossover, There were also 2.6 positions that became vacant for various reasons, and we did not fill them. We felt that we wanted, and of course I wasn't here, but administrative staff in general felt we wanted to see how things would shake out and where the need would lie. There was a position in finance, there was a position in roads, and again, we eliminated special events slash admin, not eliminated, but held off. So in these proposals that I've proposed asks that I've just talked to you about, really what we're taking is those 2.6 that were already established and funded, but we held off on, and we're asking for a grand total of one extra position. So 2.6 plus one intern, which is funded. So the net ask here in this budget is for one new position. But when you weigh that against the 4 that were redundant during amalgamation, we are still net 3 positions less than where we were pre-amalgamation. Crystal clear and clear as mud.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, almost there. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, because arenas seasonal, parks is kind of seasonal too. Wouldn't that just be what you just share some days, or do you, or I'm assuming that's already happening. But wouldn't that just be shared position,
Yeah,
winter at the arena, summer and parks?
that's a good question. They overlap. For example, our park staff in the summer help with snow clearance in the winter. And the arena positions in the winter help us with outdoor parks and rec facilities in the summer. At least that's the intent. So they're not exclusively seasonal. They overlap from year to year, and that's why it shows as a 1.0 FTE and not a 0.5 FTE. They run year round. Okay, and I know Councillor Holiday, you had questions around the breakdown on the wage increases and things. We'll come back to that. Okay. Council, if you could turn your package to the end of the slide presentation. I can't tell you what page that may be. It's probably about 25, 30 pages ahead. And I'm going to bring your attention to the debenture update. It's titled Debenture Update 2022 Audited Financial Statements.
And that's a PowerPoint PDF. That's in here.
Apologies, Steve.
Everybody good?
Looking for this.
Okay.
Nothing new here other than just to make council aware at the end of, with our audited financial statements last spring, I just wanted to make you aware because it was a question of council where we were at. So we currently pay $279, almost $280,000 in servicing costs for debentures. There's a couple other things on this chart that you should know about. So our ability to borrow is based on our revenues that we have each year. It's a percentage of that. And so that number, the revenue projections of 14.7, that's an old number. That was based on version 1 of the budget, but just to give you an idea of what those revenues are and how our borrowing is contingent on that. A little further down, you'll see a subtotal column of amount of debt remaining. So we, again, because this is 2022 audited, it shows Black Diamond and Turner Valley. But what you should pay attention to is the total of the room or of the debts that we're paying off. Sorry, excuse me, the debt limits that we have. And then the last subtotal column around servicing on debt limit, we have $3 million remaining on debt servicing. If we were choosing to debenture for projects, that's the room that you would have to do. Now there's a servicing cost to that, of course, that goes to the operating budget, but that's the room that you have. The next page was a question that was asked of council around grants, what grants we collect for capital projects, predominantly what's committed and what we have remaining. So I'll just quickly walk this through with you. The grant titles are in the left-hand column. You'll see some very familiar grants such as FREC, for example, MSI, municipal MSP, for example, and on and on. I won't go in, you're familiar with those. Of course, every one of those grants has different eligibility requirements and different projects that are, we can use them for. The next column under 2022 is at the end of 2022, how much money was in that account? Of note, that big crooked number for FREC really is not applicable for our capital budget discussions at this point. It could be if we had a project that was for erosion control, but that was money that was advanced, as you all know, to our community many years ago as we were recovering from the 2013 floods, and is pending to be returned if we don't have anything else. We haven't heard back, to my knowledge, from the province about what that deadline or that return date might need to be, or how long we're allowed to hold on to it, but that was in advance.
If I could on that note, it would be a question I think Craig might be able to answer. The current erosion that we had around the water main in the river heading from Calkins Place up Bailey Hill, that was directly related to the flood 2015. Is there any funds in FREC that could be used for that capital project? I see an immediate shake, not at all.
Cindy?
Yeah, we had this conversation with Corinne about that. Unfortunately, it's not, but it did actually, that 2.5 that we have sitting there was the exact amount they said that we could spend on berms. When they did the berm study.
To the dollar.
To the dollar. So funny how that works. So don't return it quite yet. That'd be my ask, but we should be asking when, and maybe they don't want it back. Maybe they don't let us change the
Wouldn't that
parameter.
be? Thank you. So just carrying on with that, so you can see the 2022 balance at the end of 2022. We have an allotment in some areas, as you know, for things like MSI Capital, Climate Resilience, and the Community Building Fund. You can see those numbers. So the next column is the total available that we've either had it in the bank or allotted in 23. And then the fourth column is the amount we have committed to certain projects. I don't think the purpose of this evening is to get into the exact dollar amount of which projects this is committed to, but just if you could just trust us to know that we have 1.8 committed to various projects. And those can be one-time projects. Those can be projects that are stretch over multiple or more than one fiscal year. So the punchline in all of this is the final column. We have about 1.18 remaining in grants that have been allocated to us available for capital projects. The next page, Council, is a summary of our reserves. And at the end of the package, you probably saw a detailed breakdown. I'll talk a little bit to that when we get there. But in the end, we have about $2.5 million in operating reserves in the bank, and about just over 8 in capital reserves.
Any questions on that, guys?
I do, but I don't know if it's appropriate now, because this would come up during capital discussions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So my questions would be around the community gardens and resident donations reserves. What are they? Be answered at that capital.
Okay, appreciate it. Yeah. The next thing I'd like to do with council is, oh, sorry.
Sorry, Hazel, I didn't see that.
No, I just did that, sorry. Under the operating reserves, we have a reserve for the sustainability committee. That committee was dissolved a year ago, correct?
Yes.
So it's not like $9,500 is sitting in there.
Right, so unless council gives administration direction on what to do with those reserve dollars, they would continue to sit there until they were committed to something.
And then you follow.
So pre-amalgamation, we kind of just took a shot in the dark, kind of educated shot in the dark on how much operating reserves. Has administration been happy with that amount? Like, has that worked? We just, because we had just come out, like, is that an adequate amount, or do we have too much in there to get? 'Cause I know the timing of cash flows, you need it. But I was just interested if we nailed the right number or not?
I'm sorry, Councilor Holiday, I can't answer that for you. I'm not sure if if Vin can answer that or not.
I would say with the capital projects are coming around, it will be a little bit difficult to tell at this point because we want to look at the capital projects, whatever it is coming now. And then we will see what all are the things we can utilize from here. Other than that, it can go to the grants and other stuff. So
As far as operating reserves go, I'm not sure if that's the ideal number or not. There is an accounting formula there, but we can get that question answered at some point.
It would just be good to know if it was low, like I'm not worried so much if it's too high. I'd be worried that it's low and you would want to put some more capital, transfer something from capital over rather than think we can spend more capital reserves.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
it'd be nice to know that, correct.
yeah, I would say we would love to, because in order to get for the future project, it's always get to build up that reserve on the way.
We'll get you an answer.
Hazel, follow up?
Are we on capital reserves?
You can,
Okay. And do the capital reserves include the offsite levies that have been collected over the years?
No, they don't.
Separate?
They're separate.
okay. Yeah. Rolling forward.
Okay, next step, council, just want to review some of the key adjustments in the budget. I did talk at a high level of them in my opening statements. But just to bring your attention to a little bit more of the numbers on the next page, you'll see the operating budget by category, the one-page snapshot. So as you can see under taxes, you'll see the difference of about $325,000 on the revenue side because of revenue that was misplaced into the tax account. Under reserve draws, we reduced the amount of 115 version 1 for the amalgamation. Under sales of goods and services, based on an assumption that all that would be happening for utilities is a level set between the two former towns, the revenues were reduced by 917. We reduced operating grants by about 131. And the amount that we pulled out of taxes, as I mentioned off the top, has been put into other revenues appropriately, and so that's the difference of 450. It's not a perfect offset in that case, but that's the differences. On the expense side, you'll see the wages and benefits have come down by $223,000. That is because of the reduced ask on the positions. But it does incorporate the new employees' wages that we are asking for, 2% pay increase, inflationary pay increase, and increases to CPP and EI. The vehicle lease amounts that we have added into the operating and removed from capital equate to 176, and you can see that there. And of course, with the modest assumed changes in the utility rates, there is no $895,000 to put into reserves, which has been pulled out there, as you can see. We've reduced contracted services by $76,000 just because we simply felt that we didn't need as much engineering in the bill. So I'm running through that rather quickly. There will be a more detailed version of that in the pages to follow.
Done?
So because we're dealing with that now, what I'd love to see, for complete transparency's sake, is what does that 2% increase, what is the actual dollar amount for that? And then what is the proposed increase for the dollar amount for the new positions?
Sure. Bear with me, I've got those things. And again, this is Councilor Gordon, this is my Saskatchewan math, so it might be off by just a little bit. But it's roughly $80,000 for wage increases, 2% on that wage envelope. About $40,000 of the wage increase there is due to what I call positional salary changes. So for example, we thought we would be paying a new employee X, but they came in a different spot on the wage band within the existing wage band. So there was about a $40,000 increase there. The remaining 4.6 FTEs that we're asking for, the wages equal $360,000.
I mean,
Mhm.
the third one there, what is the CPP EI increase that we're expecting? You have the dollar amount on that one?
Yes, just 1 second. So, Councilor, I don't have it to that degree of fidelity, but the benefit, the changes in cost of benefits. So for example, staff pension, or because of added positions or CPP increases, et cetera, it's going from $941,000 annually to $1,003,000, so roughly $60,000. That's the change in benefits.
That's for the whole organization.
Yes. Councillor Holiday, Councillor Burton beat you to the punch. I hope that answers the questions you had on that.
Yeah, that was.
No, that's fine. Kill two birds with one stone. That's good.
Okay, excellent. Hazel?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just a question that's regarding vehicle maintenance with the leasing of the products.
Yeah.
Is that about 2 months ago, we were presented with a leasing company to take care of that from a vehicle management perspective? Is that part of that fee as our, we reviewed 22 light duty vehicles and several of those. Did we enter into that agreement, or was that something that council?
I'll defer to Mr. Beaton on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon, through the chair. We haven't entered into an agreement with them. The maintenance for for a lease vehicle, there would be there wouldn't be any maintenance expenses. They would all be under warranty, so any maintenance that we would still need to perform on vehicles would be existing fleet that still sits in our inventory. Does that answer the question?
It does. And as a follow-up to that, if I may, Councillor Gordon, when we ran the numbers, there are a number of vehicles aging in the fleet, and we estimated over the next 10 years about $200,000 in repair. Again, that's an estimate. And so we just felt it was better use of money to move into leases where there'd be next to no maintenance. And so really the savings on the maintenance that we anticipate really pays for it, the lease costs for those vehicles. Okay, thank you. So just moving through the pages of the document here, I just want to turn your attention to the first, if you flash forward about 5 or 6 pages, just turn your attention to what we call the actual budgets in there. So you'll see Town and Diamond Valley actual 2023 and budget 23 to 25 for general number 001. That's where we'll start. And only to say there's nothing to report there. Moving forward 2 pages to administrative services. I'll just wait till I see eye contact from everyone, then I'll clear there. 2 pages later on administrative services, number 12. There are no changes. I'm only reporting the changes that you'll see there from version 1.
Version 1 to version 2. Which one?
Yeah. Where are you?
Legislative services, contracted services. There was a $7,000 increase. Can somebody provide an explanation why?
Yeah, Verna can answer that for you.
Councilor Martin, we added back in, council had asked for information about hosting the meeting course that was the EOEP course. And Oh, I just flashed blank.
We know what you got.
There was two forces you had asked about, and there wasn't time to take care of those this year, because you had talked about taking them right out of your education allotments. So I put them in there,
Okay.
so that you're free to go ahead with them in the new year.
Thanks very much.
And through Mayor Crane to council. There were certainly additions and subtractions for the budget. I'm just reporting anything that would be material there. So Councilor Martin, I apologize. In a $14 million budget, we may not check in on anything. It might have just been a rounding change or something like that. But that is a good question. We missed that one. The next page on administrative services, number 12. There were two changes. You can see them highlighted in red there. The first one is on salaries and wages. There's a decrease there due to benefits adjustments by about $15,000 from version 1. And under contracted services, there's an adjustment there for about $9,000 to an increase from version 1. So nothing substantial, but worth noting. Moving over to special projects. You'll see a highlighted number there of $240,000. That changed from $200,000. Initially, we had just the MDP review budgeted in there for $200,000. We've also added a fire services review for 2024.
Yep, go ahead.
That fire services report, or what did you call it?
The review.
The review, that will initiate a report, which would initiate being able to apply offsite levies to our offsite levy bylaw, because we're gonna need a new fire hall.
So it will address all types, response times,
Yeah.
increased anticipated call volumes, structure, all of those kinds of things. And so it will inform offsite levies. The next one I'd like to turn your attention to is amalgamation number 13-02. And it's a with removal there. You'll see the red numbers. So we simply removed $150,000 from a reserve draw and the corresponding offset under expenses. We don't anticipate needing anything significant that we can't build into the operating budget. If something unanticipated comes up, we'll come back to council for a budget amendment.
I know we should be through our amalgamation expenditures through that were funded through the community enhancement plan and all the grants that we got from that. Has that been finalized, the application, that everything has been coming? I think it was accessing about 1.2 million.
Yeah, the number was just over 1, I believe, Councillor Gordon. We haven't received it all. I think we've received about 600,000 of that so far, if I recall, and there's some still to come, but I'd have to look.
Yes.
And by the way, Vin's taking notes here of questions we can't answer, so we'll get back to you. The next page, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. So first of all, you should note that we have in this version combined fire, emergency management, and FREC into one budget. They all respond to TJ, the fire chief, and those other two budgets were quite small, so we just felt it was cleaner to start to roll things together. So the numbers won't look the same, but the totals equate to the sum of all parts. There's a couple of things to report in here under other revenue. In version 2, we underestimated the revenues that we would collect from support to other municipalities. As you know, we respond to calls to provide support. We work as a team with our neighbors. And we've upped that by $145,000 to $550,000. And we believe that's an honest and solid estimate on that. Under salaries and wages on the expense side, you'll see there was a staffing adjustment. That's where the half-time director of incremental emergency management director wages are for $80,000. The vehicle leases some vehicle leases for a fire truck or for a fire vehicle are parked in there for $40,000. We remove that from the capital list. So it's now, because it's a lease, it's an operating expense. And we adjusted on the utilities, we've adjusted those expenses based on the rates that have for the 2024 utility rate review that have been discussed. Again, if there's changes to that rate, we'll adjust the budget. Because as for council's awareness, our buildings also pay for utilities, right? So we're not just collecting from residents, we also pay, and we divvy that up based on usage to each of our town buildings. Next page, municipal enforcement. You'll see that we have removed the 0.5 position that we had originally asked for municipal enforcement. That's a decrease of about $65,000. We did that based on the conversations we've had heard over time with council. If council disagrees with that move, we're happy to have that conversation.
I think we're gonna have that conversation. Hazel, you can finish this off.
On that note, just Councilor Martin, if I may, if we have any questions tonight about HR related matters or contractual related matters, we need to go into camera for that. All right, so we can do that at the end of the evening.
Would you like to do that, Larry? Then?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, all right, well, just put it aside now.
Thank you.
Yeah, please.
This one, and this doesn't relate to personnel. Can admin provide stats in 2024 regarding the number of traffic and property infractions that the ME dealt with? Oh, yeah, but maybe for 2023, if they can provide it in 2024, the number?
So we will come to council with an annual report in the new year of the activities of bylaw municipal enforcement.
That's
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Let's take that. We'll have that conversation
Yep.
later. I have some comments on that as well.
The next page under next page under common services. Common services is a budget where we have expenses and revenues. Mostly expenses don't really fit anywhere, or one of our managers, Craig Beaton, decides he just wants to collect in one spot certain expenses. At any rate, I won't go into what those might be. Fuel, for example, Craig likes to keep it all together and things like that. But the one change on this budget is under vehicle repairs and maintenance. Again, because of vehicle leases, we've added the lease payments into this budget.
Can admin provide any details explaining an expected increase of 37% in equipment repairs and maintenance of fuel over 2023? So we went from 79 to 110.
Yeah.
That's like
Sure.
37%. Are you still averaging your gas as being high?
I'll defer to Craig on that one. Craig, under common services?
Thank you, Councillor Mountain through the chair. So yeah, the equipment repair and maintenance. There's like a couple of reasons. The fleet or the equipment that we do have, aside from the vehicles, it is also incurring slightly more repair as it gets older. Those parts are costing us more, and the cost of fuel is uncertain. So we're also making sure we're covering for fuel.
So you're saying like 37% higher over last year, right?
Yeah, so we've got loaders, graders, snow plows, all of that equipment as it ages requires more work to maintain throughout the year, hydraulics. Just equipment repairs on that large equipment.
So I'll add to that too through Mayor Crane. Vehicle maintenance, not to sound flippant, but it will be what it will be. We might get lucky next year and it'll be less. We might have a major piece break and it'll be more. And we typically try to look into the crystal ball and see what we have coming up. And it looks like we might have gotten a little lucky in 2023 on the actuals, right? And some of that might be deferred into 2024. So that's really the best explanation we can give. Okay.
Okay.
Next one under roads, Mayor Crane, you'll see there's a small change of $24,000 under salaries and wages. That's just an allowance for overtime and standby pay that we have for evenings and weekends and holidays. Obviously, things like roads and utilities are a 24/7 operation, and so we had missed that the first time around, and so we've included it. Moving ahead a few pages to water distribution. The first two notes, the first two adjustments on that page, quite simply are an adjustment on the revenues for the changes to, or the anticipated changes to the utility rates, ratcheting them down. And then there's a staffing adjustment in there. So initially in version 1, we'd asked for a utility operator in anticipation of potentially taking over operations of the water treatment plant. Because we don't have a decision there and we're not sure when, if and when that will happen, we decided to pull that ask out. And if that changes, we'll come back to council for a budget amendment. You'll see a slight, or not a slight, a significant change to transfer to reserves. It was $0 in the first version. It's slightly up to, or it's up in version 2. And finally, there was a cost change of about $8,000 in transfers to other agencies there. Nothing to speak of. On the next page under sewer, obviously revenues reflect the decrease in proposed rates for 2024 for about $615,000. There's also the staffing adjustment under salaries and wages. What we've done is we've taken a small portion of the wages in water distribution and simply spread them over into sewer, because that's where the work is being done, and we just want to accurately capture the cost in the entity that the work is being done. As well, we did add overtime and standby pay to that number, like as we did in water, of $13,000. The third note there is the transfer payment. It's an increase of cost from other agencies. We added an increased expense there of $61,000. Those are our transfer payments that would come from West End. It's the requisitions. And in the reserves, there will now be no transfer to reserves from the sewer operation. Next page, solid waste. Couple of small changes there. We've decreased the salaries in there by about $6,000. We don't have anybody specifically working in there, but there is a little bit of work attributable to solid waste, going out, adjusting garbage cans, making sure they're ready for pickup, things like that. It's a nominal amount, obviously $3,300. And then the transfer to reserves was adjusted. We increased it by about 5,000. Or excuse me. Yeah, I'm right. Okay, got it. Thanks. Moving over to planning and development, a couple of changes there. There's a wage adjustment. I apologize. I did not note the amount of the wage adjustment there. It's now standing at $462,000. I can look that up. Just 1 second if you bear with me. That number was at 483. It's now down to 462. And under your engineering and legal, we didn't feel we needed as much as we did had in version 1. So that has moved down from $125,000 down to 75. So a reduction of 50. Skipping forward 5 or 6 pages to outdoor rinks. Sure, go ahead.
Number 72.
Mm-hmm.
So there is about a $36,707.53 increase from version 1 to version 2. And Spray Park is no longer, we no longer have Spray Park as a business unit. Has that been now incorporated into parks and facilities?
Bear with me, Councilor Martin, but that makes sense.
Page 90, business unit 72.
Then did we put Spray Park into parks and facilities? Did we roll them together?
That is separate.
Parks and, spray park should be separate.
Oh, it's not listed here, Craig.
Well, that's nice, 20 grand.
It's 28,000.
Yeah. So coincidentally, there's a small increase in I apologize, I don't have the answer for you. There is a small increase in most line items on parks and facilities, and they do correspond pretty closely to Spray Park. So it may have been combined and I wasn't made aware. I apologize.
So Spray Park is 28. And this is now an increase of 36.
Yeah, so that's pretty darn close, isn't it? I will get that answer for you.
But I mean, from draft 1 to draft 2.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good catch.
Good catch, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Moving ahead to a couple of pages to outdoor rinks. Just a small change worth noting there. Again, we don't have people exclusively staffed for outdoor rinks. We spread the maintenance staff across. We had made an adjustment of about $4,000 decrease there as far as the amount of time we believe we'll spend on maintenance and on wages at outdoor rinks. The arenas combined. We met operating grants for $102,000 under revenue. We missed that in version 1. We expect to get those grants again. Apologies. And then under salaries and wages, we removed the 1.5. We originally asked for 2. We're proposing 1.5. We removed 1.5 FTE equivalent in the wages there. That accounts for the difference of about close to $100,000. So council, those are the material changes we've made in the budget. All of that to say, version 2 we came in at on draft 1 at a $271,000 deficit. Draft 2 has a $55,000 deficit. And this evening, what we're asking council to do is consider moving that amount, that $55,000 from operating reserves into the budget to zero that out and giving us approval so we can move forward with version 2. Any questions?
All right, I have, Deputy Mayor Kelly has one coming up. Hazel, I'm putting you first though. Did you have anything else? So I know you got everything highlighted and we're very good with that.
Just I had asked in our council budget spreadsheet about transportation, business unit number 34. And asking for why it was at $40,000. And Nick came back and said, so it's a recommendation to adjust the budget by 22,000. Is that correct?
I'll defer to Nick.
The question, Council Martin. Yes, I was able to retrieve some of the information in terms of revenue over the past couple of years from the Black Diamond records. And it looked like it was consistently in and around that amount. So it was something that I'd requested be adjusted.
So the 40,000 should actually be 22,000.
In my opinion, it would hover around there in terms of what we're able to collect. That's on the revenue side, correct?
No, that is on the expense.
On the expense, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I could explain a little bit farther. The costs for operations were less the driver hours that were required, and we have not increased the number of days of subsidized days, and also some of the charters increased, so that offset a little bit, but it appeared that those expenses consistently were hovering around that amount. So I was recommending a decrease.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. So we'll just decrease it by $18,000.
It was something we did. Excuse me, just a moment if I may.
Yeah.
In my notes.
While they're doing that,
Thank you.
I would just like to preface, we do want to have a closed session. And, I don't think it's gonna take too long, but of course, if we ask the public to leave, then they're out in the cold, they can come back in. But I would like to talk about, the request that was made from, citizens on patrol. I think that's where my discussion lies, and I'm not sure. I think we have to take your advice on that, as there are sensitivities around that, so. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna let Cindy go, and then we're gonna go to Jonathan, then to Brendan.
Just a little thing, and I think that was somewhere else when we went over this page. We're estimating that our 2024 taxes, so this is page 70, and general budget. 00. Budgeting it is exactly the same, it looks like, as this year. But I know we haven't had huge growth, but we have had some new houses come online. So usually it's like another 30,000 a year or something in taxes every year, you know. Plus we have like new vet clinics and new commercial buildings, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So that might help us on some of the shortfall, the 55,000, because if you could look into the new properties that have come online and just make sure that that tax wasn't estimated as too low.
So to respond to that, through Mayor Crane, so the only thing we move forward with is a number based on the 2023 tax revenue. We're starting to get some indication on the equalized assessments, but we don't know where assessments will come in as far as, like, we don't ask Doug, our assessor, to do one-offs on what might be. So you're right. When we present the revenues, we typically present them in a conservative manner based on what we know, not what we might find out. So to answer your question, you're likely right. There will be some growth in revenue based on those, but we haven't accounted for that there. I think it's safe to say there will be some changes to the upside on tax revenue based on growth, but we haven't accounted for them here.
Yeah, I'd rather not take out reserves and figure out the number, right? That's because we've done it in the past. But I don't know now that we're combined what the number is like on average, so, or what growth was last year.
Councillor Gordon, Councillor Hoiberg, then.
Mine is more of a comment before we get into closed here. I want to thank Edmund for the work that you've done, bringing back the second draft and tweaking a few things on our behalf. One of the things, I don't think we've really identified it strongly enough as a council. The combined operating budgets, when our towns were separate in 2022, the actual amount of our operating expenses was 16.2 million. And this year we're on track for an operating expenses in our first year of amalgamation to be 14.1. And we have another one in front of us of 14.1. I know we're going to jump into closed and deal some of these questions on staffing, but before we do that, I wanted to make sure that we are aware of that, and it's not time to pat ourselves on the back. We have more work to do to find efficiencies. I'm aware of that, but we've been doing very good.
Thank you for that comment. I'll go Cindy and then Hoiberg.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, and this is more for people listening. Looking back in 2020, so 3 years ago, 2021's budget, what we budgeted for salaries, wages, and benefits, which is the one that we always get asked about by residents. We were just under, we were 5,191,000, and this year this budget looks at 5,207,000. So it's like 18 grand. So if you include inflation, like, so we have lost positions, we have equalized salaries because there was a lot of disparity as we moved the organizations. We've done a lot, definite inflation and changes in everything, so I think that's really good, like, that's a
Well said.
positive. So I just wanted to talk about salaries, wages and benefits specifically. Because that always be a concern for everyone.
Thank you for that. Veronica.
I have a philosophical question here. We have not discussed the utility rate increase or passed anything on that, but we are using, we're assuming that we will pass it. So
I want to speak to this.
do you want to speak to this? This is your motion?
Yeah.
Okay, well then, let's wait.
Yeah, Craig.
Kelly. Okay, so let's get to the utility rate review conversation. So in terms of the 2024 budget, I'm not, I'd still like to see 2024 go ahead with the proposal that we bring Turner Valley and Black Diamond to one similar rate. However, after the open house, I would like to have a discussion, and this would be part of my motion that I would like to make. Instead of going to full cost recovery at the end of next year, so for the 2025 budget, I'd like to stretch that over a couple of years. And I'd like to hear council's position on that and how many years would we like to go? I don't think that 2 years, as discussed at the open house. We came in with a very aggressive approach at full cost recovery. I'd like to listen to the residents in regards to this and see if we can go 26, 27. And I'd like to give administration direction as to how council feels about that. So 2024 stays the same, so there's no impact on budget. We align Black Diamond and Turner Valley, so that under Diamond Valley, we pay the same for water and sewage. But I'd like council's opinion on how we'd like to stretch out that next year.
All right, well, now we're gonna get into some nitty-gritty. Let's go Heather first.
Thank you. I agree. I'd like to see it stretched out. I'd also like to point out that by just leveling off the playing field this year between the two former communities, giving it a year will give us a better idea of where we stand by the end of that year. You know, like maybe we will end up with some surplus, maybe not. I also have a real problem. We need to look at, give us this year, give staff this year, give us this year to level things out. And then we have a real good look at those consumption rates as well. And considering that hopefully within a year, we're going to be operating truck. We've asked for that contract to be and it's a year contract, so we'd like to take over the operations of Struck. So this gives us the year to get the playing field leveled out. It also gives us a year to have a good look at what's happening out there. I totally recognize that we're gonna have, you know, we do have some infrastructure problems, etc. So I totally am in favor of that. I would like to see it stretched out to either 3 or 4 years. But I also have a question for Craig. Through the CEO. The water loss projects that were supposed to go last year, are they going this year?
Councillor Thompson through the chair. I'm gonna guess that you're asking about the leak detection.
Yes,
Yes.
sorry.
Sorry, this year kind of got away on us and it was tough to put together that tender package. So I've asked to defer that to 2024 where we can just do
So
that.
that will be both the sewer and the water, right?
That would just be water.
Will be deferred to 2024 or are being deferred in 20, so they're in this budget. Have been deferred to this budget. Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Just a point.
That gives us that year for that too.
Just a point of clarity, they're not put into the 2024 budget, they were already approved.
Right.
So we're just gonna
Right.
get to them in 2024.
Yeah.
The 32,000. Okay, excellent.
Cindy, was that you? Yes, okay.
Yeah, I'm happy aligning things, but I don't want to actually pick a number of how long we want. I would rather have a whole another meeting talking about everything that we heard. We've not actually talked about, we've talked about setting aside money into reserves for the water and sewer, but there's also a much larger conversation that if we're doing that for water sewer, what about our roads and equipment and like our reserve policy and how much we're setting aside each year, I think could be a larger discussion, not just with utility rates. But we don't have time right now to get into that, so. I would just like to keep it as we approve it for this year, we don't approve, or say, because we're just drawing a number out of the hat as to how many years. I think there's more work that needs to be done on it. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, that's great. You've got an opinion for the vote. That's the main thing. And yeah, we can definitely have a long conversation on what we heard. So, Jonathan, we're
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Kelly, for bringing this forward. I do want to make sure that our residents are aware that we're very thankful for the conversations that we had on Monday night. Almost 200 residents showed up. That's a significant amount on a Monday night in our town. And the concerns were heard loud and clear. And I trust that we're listening. There's a bit of a difference between hearing and listening, and it sounds like we are. I fully support bringing the rates into alignment on both sides. I think that's a wise move. You know, just some quick math. We're looking at a 14.1 actual budget that we spent this year. And if we take away the utility stabilization that was done within that through property taxes, we reduce that by the 445 that Lisa said was there. Then we add the 80,000 for the 2% inflationary rate for our salaries, plus 360,000 for new positions, plus 60,000 for EI, CPP and benefits. We're back to 14.1. So there's a very good way that this has been recognized. I think this is a great way to show that we're doing it. So I fully support bringing that back up, so long as those rates are no more than what has been stabilizing our property tax portion of that. I think I spoke briefly with Lisa last night. I know she's not here tonight, but she was saying that the proposed amount for 2024 was very close to that. So it'd be great to have that confirmed.
excellent. Thank you for that. Bronco.
Yeah, I'm glad we're having this discussion. I was concerned we were gonna pass a budget based on assumptions. It's not, there's that. I do now know better than that. So, I am all for bringing the rates into alignment. I don't think we can decide how many years this will take tonight either. We got an election coming up in 2 years, so it could all of this could unravel then anyway with the new council. But my other philosophical problem is the 2023 capital or 2024 capital budget. We have a substantial water loss problem, and we have some capital projects online that we are to approve that could solve some of that water loss. So I agree, we should defer the how many years span to another night's conversation. I make a motion.
Yeah, you made the motion. Now, just looking at Hazel, if you want to
Friendly
come.
amendments, 9 meters.
Everybody said.
Love it.
Thank you.
I know.
Thank you.
We have 2 more meetings and I'm here great reasons.
We always want to hear ourselves speak, but I'm just gonna give it to you.
We have something right back.
Tell me if I caught you. The council direct administration to proceed with proposed 2024 alignment water, wastewater, and stormwater rates and postpone further discussion on achieving full cost recovery.
Yes. I'm happy with that. Happy with that.
That works for me.
And if I may just say one more thing.
Yeah,
I did just want to echo.
Heather, you want to finish?
Sure. Yeah.
I'd kind of like the timeline on that, those discussions, like first part of Q1 of 2024. Like, I don't want to lose it.
So long as we have a permanent CAO in place.
Yeah.
That's.
First quarter of 2024. I'd like a timeline on it.
Okay, so yeah, just two things here, and that's a great comment, Councillor Thompson, that the only I mean, we can certainly start talking about it in Q1, but I don't know, without having the work done with Public Works, without having the capital projects done, I don't know if we're gonna have a real clear understanding as to like how much water loss reduction we'd be looking at that point. So we can certainly set a timeline on Q1 to bring it up on an agenda. But until we get to the end of the summer, I don't know what we're really gonna be looking at for actuals.
I appreciate that, but we need timelines. We can't just
Yeah.
leave things floating forever and ever. So I would like to propose the friendly amendment to Q1 2024.
I gladly accept it. Yeah.
Before the end of Q1.
By the end of Q1 2024.
You just add it to the next Cal agenda in like January or whenever to
February?
just
Oh.
bring it back up again
Let's put it in February, yeah.
and then decide where we want to
That'll
go.
meet that recommendation. So let's leave it as an amendment and then we'll just put it onto that agenda and that will address and satisfy both caveats. Todd, then Brendan.
Sure, and it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyways, is I understand the desire to have more information and understand the total magnitude of our asset infrastructure. But if this is gonna be spread out over, and I'll use the word a number of years, whether it's 2 years or 6 years or whatever you land on. I would encourage council to get started. Like, there's a lot of money to put away, and waiting until we have all our ducks in a row. That doesn't mean we can't get started on some level of not alignment of savings. Thank you. Yeah. Working towards the goal. You've made it clear it's not gonna be in 1 year anyways. And so there's a lot of runway here and a lot of money that needs to be saved. So whether that, what that last rate needs to be to achieve cost recovery, while is relevant, it's not relevant in the short term in that, we're trying to get there. So it's food for thought when we get to the next Cal meeting, when this is horrible, when we're chewing on this. Just came to me. To not wait for, perfect information on how to set that rate, because there's gonna be constant adjustments along the way anyways, up or down. After we start making capital improvements to the infrastructure, the idea is that'll come down anyway. So anyways, for your consideration.
Yeah, excellent. I think that segues very well into calling the question here. Monday night's presentation clearly showed that the people want to be heard and that we had to listen. And I think we heard very loud and clear that it's a large pill to swallow. We presented the fact that there are issues and we don't want to be like previous councillors who just brushed it under the rug. We want to address the problem, which is the reality on the ground. And we want a solution. And I think we've got a plan here. It's going to take a few years. And I think having more information is good, but we've got the information we need now to have that immediate conversation and start on what is the plan. So let's get to the Cal meeting in February and we can go from there. Right now, we have a motion in front of us that has been presented and has been amended, and this will satisfy that. Any other comments before I call the question? All in favor? Excellent, thank you. Diamond Valley is aligned on the 2024 utilities. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
How quick do you want a motion going to close?
Let's go Heather and then Verna's got a comment.
5 minutes.
Oh, now I lost it.
See how I did that?
Take 5 minutes.
Let's take a 5-minute recess. Verna, did you want to go first?
Could I just ask that you amend your agenda?
Yes.
And then you
That's
can-
why I kind of asked at the front. I was like, I'm pretty sure we're gonna need a little closed session. So motion to amend for a closed session. That's it, right? That's all it is. Okay, and that has to be announced for 2/3. All in favor?
Maybe it's the same.
Thank you. Unanimous 2/3.
Is it?
It could be 2/3. It could be 2/3.
Okay.
I like to say unanimous because it's good. Heather,
I
go ahead.
remembered. When we had the last presentation, the budget presentation, it was noted that we potentially could have a pretty good surplus from the 2023 budget. which would cover, likely could cover, and again, I would probably ask you to look into it further before we pass the entire budget. So what is the potential surplus? We should be pretty close knowing that because we're going into December. So, I mean, there might be some differences from the report that you provided last meeting at the regular council meeting, but there could be some surplus there that we're gonna have to move in. So that could potentially cover the $55,000 in this operating budget. So just if you could look into that further.
Yes, definitely.
So just as a comment, Councilor Thompson, so it's a safe bet there will be a surplus. With all due respect, it's not as simple as just looking into that further. We'll have to put into 50 hours worth of work to do a further assessment on what it's looking like. So
Sorry.
no apologies required. It's just that to ask for that, if you want that, we'll do it. But there's work involved to get the degree of granularity you're looking for.
I guess maybe it's more of a public thing that I just wanted to bring up, that we're looking at a surplus for 2023. So if we go ahead and take this budget and move forward with it, then there is the possibility that it could be covered from the 2023 surplus. So that's just more of a public thing. Also, I'd like to note that we have to pass a 3-year operating budget. So we'll need to see that at the final budget meetings so that we've got the 3-year operating budget in place. I know that I recognize we're passing like for 2025 and estimating the 2026 budget. So just wanted to bring that to the attention of everyone as well.
And just a point of clarity again, I know that there's only one item that we want to go into close and have a conversation around. Otherwise, I feel very confident in this budget that's been presented. It represents a 0% increase with a 55,000 transfer from reserves. As was mentioned previously, you know, communities are looking at 5 and 7%. We're looking at a 0. That's a major win. It's a major win for administration. It's a major win for our residents. And I think tonight, after we come out of our closed session, we will probably be having our very detailed question on that night. So not sure how long we're going to be. It's not a huge conversation, but if you can go out and warm up your truck, it could be 10 minutes and we could have you back in here and finish our debate. I don't think it's going to be that long. So anywho, let's take a 5-minute recess. There's some public here if you want to have some sidebar with council before.
Have a fun Monday.
5 minutes, 5-minute recess.
When you come back, we'll need to give the folks online a time when they can get back into the meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay, and we are back at recess. Just for those online here, we are going to go into a closed session of council. We're guesstimating 30 minutes. We're hoping 30 minutes. So we're gonna say we're gonna come back at 8. So we'll turn the computer back on and the live stream and whatnot at 8 o'clock. And if we have to have more discussion, we're not finished yet, then we'll just turn it on, let you know, and then we'll go back in. But we are hoping for 30 minutes. So with that said, I'll take a motion to go into close.
The meeting will be closed.
Yes, the meeting will be closed. You will not be, you'll be absolutely ictionated from the meeting. So you'll sign back in at 8 and we'll wait and Verna will let you all back in and then we'll let you know if there's any motions coming out. So I'll take a motion to go close, please. Hazel gives us that. All in favor? And thank you. That is at 7:27. And we will just pause while the camera's turned on. Thank you. We reconvened the meeting. We came out of camera at 8:02. Just got the live feed, so we've been waiting for that to pop up here before we began. And we're going to start off with a comment from CAO Sharp.
It's just a comment, Mayor Crane coming out of closed session around a potential motion that's going to come forward now, and that was around moving reserves to balance the proposed budget. I don't think that motion is necessary tonight. We can make that motion when we bring the budget back in our next engagement, and whatever that number that, well, just in case that number changes slightly, we make that motion as part of the adoption of the budget. It saves a step. So there may only be one motion for this evening.
Excellent. All right, I'm gonna let Councillor Gordon make that motion.
All right, yeah, simple motion, council to direct administration to cancel the municipal enforcement contract that we have with Longview.
All right, any questions, comments, concerns? All in favor?
Should we maybe state as to
Good.
why that motion was made?
Should
you explain it?
No.
Speak to it.
Yeah, sure, okay. The council had a discussion around the 16 hours per week, which works at 832 hours a year that we spend in Longview. And we spend that time in Longview as CPOs enforcing town of Longview's regulations, obviously, but it comes at a cost that's neutral. And we've heard from the community loud and clear that they would like to see more enforcement. They would like to see more presence in our community, and the Citizens on Patrol in particular voiced concerns around the needs for more service in town. So we decided to, as you just saw, cancel our contract, which takes 832 hours and puts those officers back in town on our streets enforcing our bylaws. On top of that, we also acknowledge as a council that we do have a pending contract with the RCMP. We're going to be paying for that as a community to the tune of $350,000. And we expect to see service from the RCMP. So if they are diligent in their efforts, keeping the staffing at the right levels, we will see increased presence of RCMP as well. And we look forward to having those conversations and meeting those goals for the residents of Don Valley. And this council has been fully supportive of that and unanimously support that initiative. Excellent. I do believe that concludes our meeting for this evening. Anything else, Todd? Oh, yes. So we're going to have a budget, just so everyone knows, the budget is going to come back on Wednesday. We have had our debate tonight. We had some clarifying points. We'll speak to those clarifying points and look to approve it at our next meeting. So by all means, tune in at that point. Please try to attend. We plan to approve it next week. Nothing should change that drastically. We're very happy. 0% budget has been produced, and that sees us with great efficiency, building reserves, and acknowledging the utility rate review that will come in the following year, as well as an increase in our service levels. So we think that's a great win. We will talk to it next week. Meeting adjourned.